Listen, man, there's a lot of bad movies, and a lot of these movies deserve the hate that they get for wasting your time, for wasting your money, for wasting just brain space having watched it, right? They should have never been made in the first place, and they deserve the hate. And I'm going to talk about 2 of those in this video. But first, I need to talk about 5 movies that they don't deserve the hate that they're getting. So let's get into it. First up, we have the Hobbit Trilogy. Now, I'm just kind of including this as one movie because I feel like they're all the same and people have all the same issues with them. As time has passed, people have very much softened on the Hobbit Trilogy. At first, and still, the most common complaints are the CG, where it just feels like everything is fake, especially coming from Lord of the Rings, where everything felt so real and everything was real and everything was done practically. To have gone from that to have gone to the Hobbits was just felt very inauthentic and not true to the Lord of the Rings world, and that rubbed many people, including myself, the wrong way. The next big issue that people had was just the fact that we took this child's 300-page book and drew it out into a 3-movie trilogy. And it didn't feel true, especially coming from The Lord of the Rings, where each book got 1 movie, to have done this to The Hobbit, where people felt like, which is true, that it just really diluted the story and you had to add a bunch of garbage, just excess padding in different spots and different subplots and characters that weren't in the original work, and love triangles and blah blah blah, all this crap, where it's like this wasn't original, it didn't feel true to the source, and that caused a big issue for most people. And playing into that, people were just frustrated with the fact that it just didn't feel like The Hobbit, right? It didn't play into that whimsical and simpler kind of feel that the Hobbit book has, where it's not super complicated. It is more fun and lighthearted and, like I said, more whimsical. Peter Jackson actually admitted that the production of the movie was super rushed after Guillermo del Toro left the project. But like I said, it has aged okay, and people have softened on it, because usually what happens in these kind of scenarios is what happened here again, which is you get a little bit more of that series, of that product, and it's much worse, and you look back at the older stuff and say, maybe I judged you too harshly, which has happened a little bit with the Amazon Prime series. Up next is The Dark Knight Rises, which sits at a 3.8 on Letterboxd. Really a very, very good score, but it is considered Christopher Nolan's weakest Batman film. It's been criticized for just not being super deep. It felt that the screenplay felt lazy. We were there to see that Bane wasn't fleshed out enough, and that the Batman, usually in the first 2 movies, it was a stronger theme of fear, of whatever, and that it just wasn't quite there for The Dark Knight Rises, and people had that issue with it, and there are a lot of plot holes in it as well, which makes it feel lazy. But when The Dark Knight Rises is compared to other movies, just in general, and you see the high quality production of the film in general, and you see the work that went into it, and the really strong and cool ideas, the way that things play out. Yes, maybe things aren't perfect, and yes, it is the worst of the 3 Batman movies, but as you can tell from the Letterboxd rating, 3.8 is a fantastic score. Up next is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's at a 2.5 on Letterboxd, so there's not a ton of love, but it doesn't deserve it. It's a fun recreation of the graphic novel. Now, the issue is it doesn't stick to Alan Moore's graphic novel almost at all. It just takes complete liberty of all of the ideas, changes everything. It doesn't really stick to any of Alan Moore's original vision for A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So it's fair for the people that had seen it, that knew the original work, like, hey, this isn't quite working for me. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a fun movie. Now, the other issue that people had is that the CGI that's used in it is just really, really bad. Even for the time, it was really, really bad. So I'm not saying that it's good, but I'm saying that watching The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen now, it really was judged too harshly, and still is judged too harshly. It deserves a bigger break for sure. Up next is Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That's right, I'm drawing a line in the sand. It's at a 3.0 right now, exactly, on Letterboxd. Now, listen, I hear you, okay? But I think we're all on the same page now. Overuse of CGI, absolutely. Cheesy, a little bit childish, Jar Jar Binks, all the stuff. Listen, man, I hear you, and I'm on the same page. Okay, we agree, but in hindsight, compared to the Star Wars slop that we are getting now, listen, I just think it's fair to say, I think we all agree that if we could trade in a second, if we could just trade the Disney Star Wars crap for some more Phantom Menace, some more Clone Wars, that we would do it in a heartbeat, because we didn't know how good we had it back then. And the Phantom Menace, it doesn't deserve all the hate. And speaking of not deserving of the hate, I gotta bring out my boy, Waterworld. It's only at a 2.9 on Letterboxd. It deserves so much more than this. So I just gotta set the stage, okay? It, at the time, was considered cinema's biggest flop. During the production, its cost tripled during the filming. So, I mean, it was just racking up the bills. A multi-million-dollar set that they made on the water was destroyed in a hurricane. So because of all this drama and all this stuff that was happening, all the money, they're spending too much money on, sets were getting destroyed by hurricanes and stuff, the media was covering it a ton, covering the filming of the movie a ton. And they were, because of this extensive coverage, they were putting a lot of bad will out into the world, into people's minds. So when the film finally came out, people already had these preconceived notions that it was garbage, that it was way over budget and all this stuff. And that bled straight into the perception of Waterworld. It is really a fun, well-made, it's a great movie, and it absolutely does not deserve the hate that is thrown at it. It is right up there with Mad Max, absolutely. I think it's better than Mad Max, but you be the decider, okay? Go watch it, then go watch Mad Max, and tell me which one did you have more fun watching. Now, on to the two movies that absolutely deserve the hate, but real quick, my name is Austin Kohler. I have studied, watched, and reviewed over 10,000 hours of film. Storytelling is extremely important to me. I think that it is one of the best ways that we can communicate, that we can connect, and I think it's very important that we can tell the difference between good and bad stories. So, if you feel similarly, please subscribe. Now, the two crappy movies, starting with The Joker 2. I went into this with the best intentions. I hadn't seen it when it first came out. I knew that it was a musical. I knew that it didn't follow this plot from the first movie, that it was going to go in a completely different direction. I knew all of this stuff. I knew everything. I went into it with just the highest, not the highest hopes, but I think with the best mindset that you could have ever gone into a movie that people hated, knowing all of the negatives about it, without actually having seen the negatives for myself. And I'm here to say it deserves absolutely 100% of the hate. The story is flat. It goes nowhere. It does nothing. It doesn't say anything about anything. Its musical numbers just say the exact same thing over and over and over. I love you, I love you, I love you. It's like, okay, that's cool. What's next? And then the narration, the talking between the musical numbers say, you guessed it, I love you, I love you, I love you. So it's just, the whole movie is just I love you, I want to be together for 2.5 hours? It's almost 3 hours, I think. And then it ends, nothing, just a total waste of time. It needs to be viewed and studied about how not to make a sequel to a really beloved movie. And lastly, I'm drawing another line in the sand, and I'm going back to the well I just was at, and that is, it's The Last Jedi. Okay. And come on, you knew it had to be on this list, right? I'm not gonna get into all the stuff. Okay. There's a way better videos on YouTube about why it's this or why it's that. The main point I wanted to hit on, why this movie was so bad. I want to talk about the mishandling of the characters, of the world itself, of all the stuff, right? We got to just step back, look at it big picture. Okay. Look at the forest, not the trees. And whether you're a hater or you're a lover, we all got to agree on one thing, and that is the fact that any franchise that completely and absolutely splits and divides its fan base against each other is a failure, because you just upset 50% of your fan base. Whether or not you think what they did was a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't really matter, because you just upset half of the people that liked your product. And anybody who doesn't see that as a failure, sorry to tell you, but you're wrong. Patreon.com/Austin Kohler. Right now, the collaborator tier, where you write into the shows and videos that I make, like this one, is free for 7 days. So you can head on over there and drop me a line. I'll read your comments in an upcoming video. Subscribe here and click here for more videos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.